Throughout the day, actually, almost all of the speakers have built upon the theme that I chose to talk about. So in many ways, what I'm going to do is give you 6 different organizations, the views of 6 different organizations, enterprises, and what they're doing from my perspective in driving impact at scale through understanding intent, which was really from this morning, we understood it as answering the question why, and interconnectedness. And I'm going to talk about that through all of my examples. But the first thing I'd like to do is just set the stage a minute. And as you can see, we have a picture of Brad Pitt in Moneyball. And this week was the Academy Awards, so I think it's actually very timely. But all of us are here because we know that we're at an inflection point. We understand, all of us in the room, about information exploding and being explosive. We understand that tools and technology are enabling. But the 2 points on this page that I want to talk about and I want to bring back to Moneyball is around talent, which we've heard about quite a lot today, and about value creation. When you think about the movie, and I'm going to use the 2 characters from the movie, Billy Beane and Peter Brandt, when you think about those 2 characters, together they holistically embodied all of the characteristics that we all strive for in business. It was very clear who the decision maker was. It was Billy Beane. He had all of the knowledge of the game. He understood how the game worked. He understood how money was made. He understood all of the challenges that he had, and he also understood that he needed to reinvent this game. When he met Jonah Hill, Peter Brandt in the movie, right, when he met him, he saw in him the skills that he didn't have, but that he respected and that he needed in order to be able to change the game. Those are the skills that we're talking about today: economics, mathematics, engineering, technology. These skills were brought into baseball in order to be able to reinvent the game and create value from places and value from people who were previously dismissed, or might I say discarded. And I would say to you that most of us throw away the most valuable information without us even knowing it. And for those of you that build models and you build development samples, I would say that the leading indicators are probably sitting in the data that you throw away. Very interesting times to be working in data. Now, talent. The only point I want to make here, since everybody has spoken about the importance of our people and leading our people not only to be data scientists, but dare I say data artists, the people that are creative, the people that Alistair talked about earlier, that have the genius, both the intellect and the creativity. They need to be led. They need to be led, and they need to be taught also the business. Only when the scientists understand the business and how money is made in the business do you have the most effective, holistic way of really leading and organizing your organization. So my 6 examples are really ways in which I think that enterprises are learning as fast as the world is changing. Let's start with MasterCard. Earlier today, we heard about P&G. MasterCard has equally as much data as any of us could ever dream about. 160 million transactions per hour, 1.7 billion cards, 32 million merchants, 22,000 issuers globally. Real spend data, transaction data, near real time. One of the things that's critical that MasterCard has done is they have invested in their capabilities and infrastructure. They have built proprietary tools in data cleansing, aggregation. They have warehoused their data in such a way that at the end it can be transformed into these actionable insights. These insights ultimately will drive impact for their clients. An example, one that is very, very timely, talked about almost every day, the prices of gasoline. The price of gasoline, as any pricing model is being built within economic theory, really tends to work best when there's a supply and a demand side to the equation. But up until now, or prior to MasterCard really putting out its spending pulse data, The U.S. Department of Energy would look at the supply side of gasoline and infer or imply the demand side. But imagine when you have all of this transaction data, you actually can know how much gasoline was sold. And when you look at that, you will also understand, as MasterCard has put out, that the number of barrels pumped is down in every region of this country year over year. Something that might not have been known but should be very insightful as we look into gas prices. And by the way, this that they've done in the United States obviously can be done for every country that they do business in, which is almost every country on the planet. Now I'm going to talk about Opera Solutions. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the company Opera Solutions, but Opera really enables its clients to drive profits and growth, revenue growth, through advanced analytic capabilities. And one of their core offerings is something called a signal hub. And earlier today, we talked about how do we hear and how do we understand the signals before it happens. Well, Opera is doing something very, very interesting. What they're doing for their clients is they're basically building these data ecosystems. They take all of the data that the clients give them, and then they put them through this signal hub, but really through the model building process. What they do is they create models that will identify only the data that has predictive value. Then that data that has predictive value will sit inside of this signal hub. And then what is very valuable is the signal hub will then connect to their delivery platforms or their enterprise operations. How many times do you have your analytical teams sitting and building all of these models that then can't be implemented into your delivery platforms? This solution, this core offering, enables, on a real-time basis, these signals to be brought into your delivery platforms. So I'm going to give you an example. This example from Opera Solutions is for a large financial services client, for which I have quite a lot of experience. And one of the things that they have done is they have taken all of the information from this financial institution and they have grouped it in such a way where they call it intra-enterprise, which really represents transaction data within the bank, inter-enterprise, which is really the voice of the customer or the way in which they're listening to their clients, could be their call center logs, could be their social media environments, and then extra enterprise data, the data that most financial institutions buy beyond the data that they already have. And most financial institutions buy quite a lot of data. Perfect example of that would be credit bureau data. And what they will do is they will put all of this data again into this data ecosystem, and then it goes into their signal hub, where they create all of these predictive signals. These signals represent change in a social sense, change in a work situation, change in a spending pattern, change in financial health. And then those predictive signals, which represent change, are the signals that go into their delivery platforms or their applications, which could be credit and risk, it could be marketing, it could be fraud, continuous feedback loops, dynamic ways in which all of this information is brought together. And just as an example for this particular client, some of the productivity and profit gains, big numbers, 60 million in fraud savings, 45 million of NPV for a card issuer, and 2 times the speed of compromise detection of a large card network. Quite significant in terms of impact. This quote I really love, and now we're going to change gears a little bit. The real act of discovery consists not in finding new lands, but in seeing with new eyes. So let's talk about, for a minute, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has engaged in an initiative which is called the Health Data Initiative. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but I'll just give you a bit of a summary. What they have done is they looked at a sister organization, which is NOAA, and they understood that when NOAA made weather data available to the public, it fueled an entire commercialization and innovation environment for all of us to benefit from. Weather data. How many of us today could really, survive without understanding as we travel what the weather is like where we're going? Weather newscasts, weather apps, weather websites, and weather insurance are just a couple. But today, when we listened to the gentleman talking about car accidents in Chicago as a result of the weather, I couldn't help thinking about how powerful this data would be for that type of an application. When you talk to the CTO of HHS, they believe in Joy's law. How many of you are familiar with Joy's law? Joy's law basically says, its principle is no matter who you are, understand that most of the smartest people work for someone else. Very true. If you believe that to be the case, and you understand that talent is paramount, then what you want to do is you want to create an open environment, a collaborative environment, an ecosystem where everybody has access to your data so that new products and services can be built. The Health and Human Services Organization is looking for a rapidly growing array of innovative products and services to be built that will help consumers take control of their health, help employers promote health and wellness, help care providers, help journalists in such a way that everybody benefits. So what kind of data is being liberated? In fact, there's community health data, almost 1,200 metrics in a data warehouse of community health data. Provider directors and quality, national provider directors, that includes survey data that helps you understand and compare the quality and care given by various providers. Blue Button, a joint venture that enables military families and the military personnel and VAs, veterans, to download their electronic health records. Consumer product information. Now we're talking about such things as FDA recalls. Imagine how powerful FDA recalls can be as leading indicators when you're trying to understand some of the risks with health. Medical scientific knowledge. The National Library of Medicine, clinical trials, all of this information has become public. Government spending. They've been doing this for a couple of years, and as a result, you can see, new products and services are being built. All of these low cost, some of them free, enabling consumers to take care of their health and enhance their capabilities. The best source of new ideas in your field can be old ideas from unrelated fields. This came up this morning as well. Within sectors, it's hard enough to understand your data. However, the power of collaboration across sectors could be unbelievably transformational. So I'm going to give you an example, financial services and healthcare. As my bio states, I have a lot of experience in financial services. I don't have a lot of experience in healthcare, although I do have an interest. And one of the things that I've noticed is that if I could just take some of the application and the evolution of the things that I have not only created but learned in financial services and apply them in healthcare, it would be an unbelievable opportunity. So for example, credit infrastructure. Many of you, this morning there was an example with Experian, and when the gentleman showed the competitors to Experian, there were only two others that were up there, if I remember, and I'm sure they were Equifax and TransUnion. However, 25 years ago, there weren't just 3 national credit bureaus. Many of you may not know, there were probably at least 50 or 60 fragmented information centers that were collecting credit information. How familiar does that sound to the environment today for electronic health records? Many are being driven to build and to move towards national electronic health record infrastructures. You can see the comparisons and the methodology similarity between what was done in credit and what could be done in healthcare. And then what did that fuel? It fueled a lending economy for trillions of dollars. I could argue that once electronic health records become much more standard, much more consistent, a whole new economy can be built. When we want to talk about the interconnectedness between financial services and healthcare, let me give you one statistic. It's quite an interesting statistic, and I know it from the banking side. 60% of bankruptcies have some source that are related to healthcare problems. So imagine if you now understood people and the risks that they have with healthcare and their insurance and the challenges, how maybe new products could be built so that people could avoid this type of a financial situation. And lastly, digital payments. Digital payments actually, I think, is at the core of every sector. Because at the end of the day, if you follow the flow of money and money is going to be transferred more and more digitally, then you will understand that these sectors between financial services and almost any other can be connected. So recently, Mary Meeker, in one of her presentations, used this quote. I really loved it. Sound is going to be bigger than video. Record is the new QWERTY. So I'm going to give you some examples of work that's being done using sound or speaker recognition. Language proficiency exams. This is a big business, actually, and outside the United States, if you think of countries like India, China, Korea, where many of their citizens are looking for jobs in the government sector, fluency tests are an extremely important component of getting these jobs. A lot of these tests are delivered all with proctors and with examiners. They're very expensive. So at Recognition Technologies, they have been developing this speaker recognition capability for years, where they've been collecting what they call big data for 8 years of telephone types of examinations, 500,000 sessions over 5 years of computer interface language proficiency exams. They've been collecting it, and they created various capabilities, one of which is an automatic language proficiency rating. And the potential impact to language proficiency exams is that now you have more affordable automated tests. So therefore, you don't need proctors for these tests, at least to the degree of level 1, where you can weed out those that have any degree of fluency versus those that should continue in the testing process. This is just a visual representation of that. In the spirit of time, I'm going to move on. Now, when I talked about cross-sector collaboration earlier, it's fascinating that the people at Recognition Technologies understood that if they took their speaker recognition technologies and they now start to apply it to structures, that each structure has a unique vibration signature. And that unique vibration signature is coming from sound. So if they start to capture all of this data from varying locations on these vibration signatures of healthy structures, they can create norms. Once they create norms, they can create deviations. Once you have deviations from the norm, what do you have? You have leading indicators to a health prognosis of buildings and bridges. How powerful is that? That you can determine, based on sound, right, which buildings and which bridges are going to be in need of repair. And after disasters, here we are in California, earthquakes, bridges, the challenges of damage detection through sound, through these unique vibration signatures of structures. One more company that's using sound in a very interesting way is NICE Systems. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this company. Their CEO once told me that of the Fortune 100 companies, they service 86 of them. So chances are, even if you don't know, many of you are clients of NICE. And what NICE basically does is they capture all of the human interaction data that's going on across the enterprise through phone centers, through email, through social media, and they have developed a very unique interaction analytic capability based on linguistics, text mining, all types of sophisticated mechanisms by which they can understand emotion and intent. And then they will categorize it in such a way that will alert an institution to where their problems are coming from their customers, which will then get them into a place of analysis where they can help their clients understand how to solve some of these problems. So GoDaddy is a client of NICE. And GoDaddy actually partnered with NICE to understand when customers call into their call centers where at where some of their biggest problems were. Some of their biggest problems were from repeat callers. Many of you that are in large organizations and understand call centers understand that repeat callers are really a problem, right? It's called first call resolution. Most of us want to be able to solve the problems at the first time so that basically we don't get these repeat callers and we have upsell opportunities when somebody's calling in. NICE, in partnership with GoDaddy, was able to not only identify the repeat callers, but identify which products people were calling about multiple times. And then, connecting the organization, they brought the customer service area into the product, in with the new product development areas as teams started to work together and build new building processes. What was the impact of this? Almost $2 million of annual savings for GoDaddy in eliminating repeat calls, obviously improving upon their first call resolution and increasing sales, thereby revenue. Last example, a quote first from Ted Friedman, and this is an example that's going to be talking about data quality. I just want to note that I'm going to go to the second part of the quote where it says, unless you're ensuring the quality of what's being delivered, then you're just like a faster manure spreader. You're just taking the crap data that's sitting in most company systems and you're spreading it around the organization. What an imperative for all of us to understand the quality of our data before we get into all of the fascinating work that we've been talking about today. So to that end, there's a company, Black Oak Partners. They are doing amazing work in this space. And what they do is first they'll optimize your data sources in such a way that if you thought you needed 5 data sources at the beginning, they might come back and tell you, you really only need 3. And by the way, and when you do that, it will save you. In this case, it saved them about $5 million for their client. But then more importantly, they're optimizing based on what they call data dimension metrics. They believe of metrics on data. These dimensions, if you can't see them, are accuracy, completeness, coverage, relevancy, and consistency. And why are they doing this? Not only for the purpose of data quality, but they believe, as was said earlier, that data is the raw material by which new products and services are being built. There isn't a company that I speak with that isn't talking about commercialization of their information assets. Everybody understands that their information is going to be somehow of value and driving incremental revenue in the future. But if we don't have metrics and consistency and standards around the data, then we're not all being held to the same accountability as it relates to our data quality. Which really gets me into my last thought, which is around data ethics and ethical analytics. I think really it's important as a leader of an analytic organization, and I led thousands of people across the globe in analytics. At the end of the day, it's about our moral compass. With more granular insights comes greater responsibility. Just because you can, it doesn't mean you should. All of us can find interesting data that really is inappropriate for us to take anywhere. But you need to know that. You need to have the moral compass, and your leadership needs to be committed that even if the data could be brought to such a level of transformation, if it's not doing the right thing for your clients, you just shouldn't do it. So in closing, just want to say that today's leaders have a big challenge. They need to connect the deep understanding of their business to execution in order for all of us to be able to solve all of the global challenges that we have surrounding us. And let's end with Albert Einstein. Vision without execution is merely hallucination. Thank you very, very much.